Thank you for tuning in to the Failed Podcast. I am your host, Sam Iscavell. Here at the Failed Podcast, we focus on failures and challenges and how our guests have experienced them. Along with that, the lessons that they have learned. Our hope is that you learn something new. And if you're facing challenges, maybe one of our guests can encourage you to keep going. Through the power of conversation and asking the right question, we hope to leave you with insight and wisdom that can help you face your failures and challenges. And on behalf of the Failed Podcast, thank you for listening. And now we want to welcome our guest, Andrew Turner from the Fort Worth Roots Podcast. My friend, how are you doing today?
Sam, dude, thanks for having me on the show again. Saved me from Snowmageddon 2023.
Yeah, man, I'm so happy to have you here. I know that 2022 is your year when we're talking about Fort Worth. You were voted #1 podcast in Fort Worth, Texas.
So far. 2022 was my year so far.
So far, so there's always a running for it next year, but you got my support. I was so happy when you received it. You've been putting in a lot of work. You've been having a bunch of great guests and great conversations. And so it was well deserved.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm not ever gunning for any particular award other than the Failed Podcast You're the Best trophy that I received in 2022.
I got yours over there, the Fort Worth Roots plaque that you gave me for your 100th. Is it 100th episode that you did?
The 100th episode. 100th episode party that we threw, and you and I believe 10 other local podcasters.
Yeah, that was great.
Made sure to acknowledge you guys because y'all were instrumental in making sure that we got people out there, and it was a great turnout. We had 250 plus people at that event.
It was, and I was glad my wife went, and she got to meet you. And so, usually I start off, and we start off in the beginning of people's life, and we figure out what they've been through, what challenges and failures they've had that have kind of contributed to who they are today. But I consider you a friend, and so I just want to have just a little chit-chat to open today's show. But I want to say, I don't know, I know you know because I've told you, but I'm saying it here on the podcast so people can realize how important it is to have at least one person who supports you, one person who believes in you, because we're always looking for a lot of support. Like, no, I don't want one, I want 1 million supporters. And at the end of the day, the event that we went to, you invited me, that opened the door to so many things. Right. And I know you know now, but you don't realize what it's done. And I'm not the only one who says that. There's other local podcasters who have come on here, and I talked to in private. They said the same thing. They said that event was thrown in. They got invited by someone else, but it had the same effect on them, and we all connected. And since then, the community has grown, and we're all collabing and talking, and we all are supporting each other. But you're the one who kind of opened that door for me.
Man, that's
with that invite.
Such a badass compliment. But there's not only myself, but there's a lot of other people inside our little podcast community, you being one of them, that have bridged the gap and made sure that we've kind of tightened up the Fort Worth Pod Squad. Yeah. So, I appreciate that a lot. It's a very sincere compliment, but there are a lot of other podcasters out there doing the same thing, and that's what makes our community so great.
Yeah, I think Fort Worth has that, and I think as long as we keep it up, and it's not about necessarily being #1. It's nice. Someone is going to pull ahead. I don't know how or when or why, but someone will, and the hope is that we're all close and we're all buddies, so that one gets elevated, we're all elevated with him, and as a city we can be represented more and more whenever we're talking podcast and creativity.
I want to see a different podcast in the winner's circle every year for every different nomination.
I just appreciate you so much, and I want people to hear me say that and why I'm saying it, because maybe you who are watching or listening, you have the opportunity to invite or open the door or help someone do something that can introduce them to a whole new set of people, and then maybe just give them that encouragement that they need at that time. And so that's what you did, man. And so the Fort Worth Roots means so much to me. I've listened to so many of your episodes, and your unique, I'm going to just say it, your unique interviewing style. You know what I mean? I don't know how you developed it or who you emulated, or if you ever sat down and said, Andrew is going to interview like this. but I think that it's very unique and you own it the way that you do it. And so keep it up. When we did our episode, I didn't realize it, but I always said, now if I go on his show, I'm going to know when he starts. And with everyone they come in, you do the same thing. You're talking, blah blah blah, and you're already recording, and then by the time you know it, you're 30 minutes in, it's already going.
Well, you know why I do that.
No, why?
I want people to be comfortable. Whenever you're doing these interviews, it can be kind of
stiff.
Yeah, it makes people uncomfortable. So they show up to my studio, they sit down, they've got these preconceived notions of how it's going to go. And, oh God, make sure you don't say this. Don't say too many times. They've got all these things in their head that they're worried about. And the last thing I want them to worry about is the stress of having some weird person asking crazy questions and making the environment uncomfortable. So I just start the recording and I start talking to them.
Well, it works.
When I do the post edit, then I'll just decide at what point do I pick it up. And 9 times out of 10, I play the whole thing from the beginning. Now,
on the episode we did when I came to your studio here recently, you edited, you listened to it. I'm not fetching for a compliment, guys. I know that's what it seems like, but because I know you critique every show. Me as a podcaster, I do. When you heard our podcast, what did you critique? How did you feel? How did we do? How did I do on the Fort Worth Blues podcast?
You did great. And the first thing that I noticed, even before I started editing the show, for that particular episode, you've gotten so much more comfortable in front of a microphone. And you do have your own unique style as well, but whenever we first sat down and recorded versus whenever we sat down at the studio, at my studio and recorded, there was a totally different Sam, and you're much more confident. You're better at what you do. So you've gotten a lot better at your craft.
Well, it's cool, man, because a friend of mine posted on Instagram, and he was fighting with some lightsabers with Buddy. He was fighting with him, and it's like right now we're kind of doing this thing, and we're kind of showcasing what we do as podcasters for people. Maybe y'all want to podcast or communicate. You want to make communication a focus in your creativity. And so this is kind of 2 different type of podcasters, 2 different type of interview styles kind of sitting together. And this to me, this brings out another style of communicating, because I'm like, I better be on point, man, because I got Andrew here.
I'm the easiest one to get along with. You don't have to worry about me at all.
No, I agree, man. You're a good guy. Thank you so much for being my friend and coming out today. Although I hate to date my episodes, but I'm going to date today a little bit. Here in Fort Worth, this past 3-4 days, it has been icy and snowy. The city has shut down, and it has been crazy. And so I said, Andrew is not working. I'm not working. And I said, dude, come on, let's do this. And he said, yeah. And so here we are. And sometimes you do episodes like that. You got to just do them quick and always be ready. So thank you for accepting it and then coming out as well. And so now let us begin. The young Andrew, when you were young, where did you grow up? Tell me about your family life. Who were you a long time ago? You're kind of a ghost to me, man. I know Andrew from Fort Worth roots.
That's the way I like to keep it.
Yeah.
My family moved around a lot. We were from West Texas, starting off in Midland, and working my way to Abilene, and then eventually landing in Arlington, and then joining the military, moving around a lot, and then settling here in Fort Worth.
Tell me a little bit about, like, when you grew up, what do you remember as a child that kind of made you who you are today? Did you have a lot of friends? Did you ride a bike? Were you a skateboarder? Who and what kind of things were you into when you were young?
The thing I've been thinking about a lot as far as my childhood, this just seems to be a recurring thought in my head, is I think I was in the last generation that was allowed to go out on their bicycles with mom, dad telling them, hey, when the streetlights come on, make sure you're back at the house, right? That was our rule. And we had to check in. If we left in the morning, say it was a Sunday, and we were going to be outside all day, the parents wanted us outside all day. But we would come back and check in around lunch, get a sandwich, and then head back out. And we'd just get into mischief and playing drainage culverts and ride bicycles up and down the street, go to so-and-so's house, then so-and-so's house. We just made a day out of running around, making it up as we went along.
So what generation might you be? What year were you born?
Well, I think I qualify as a millennial,
Millennial.
but I didn't get awarded that identifier until about 10 years ago, I feel like.
How old are you? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm 37 years
Okay,
old.
okay. No worries. You're gonna feel young next to me. I'm 40, so you're,
Right behind you, brother.
So when you say that, it kind of brought back memories of me. And I would ride my bike, and I was far from my house, 10, 15 miles away. My mom, I didn't tell her where I was going.
That was always the challenge, right? You wanted to see how far you could take it.
Yeah, we just went. We just went, and it was just a different world. Our younger kids, I have a daughter. She won't ever experience that. I can't let her, even when we go to the grocery store, sadly enough, she has to be in my sight. You know what I mean? And I don't want to be overprotective, but I also know the environment that we live in. And I do miss that growing up. And I guess it added to us a lot, like our confidence, right? Our sense of exploration was made back then because we were free to explore and kind of be kids.
I'm sure there's a non-tangible, impossible to weigh quality that we gained from that freedom that we had to just be ourselves, running around, causing all sorts of mischief, and not being plugged into a video game or,
They were just plugged into the TV. That's it. It all lived in that little plastic container. There was no internet plugged into it. It was just that.
Yeah.
That was it. It was all. What a weird time, anyway. Anyways, what did you enjoy the most that you can remember when you were a kid? What really made you happy? What was Andrew's number one hobby?
Man, every year we'd go see the grandparents up in Arkansas. And they had a farm.
Yeah.
And they'd bring us up right in time to kind of collect all the bales of hay that Granddad had already baled up, right? So we'd take the flatbed out there. And if any of your listeners have done this before, they know there is no way to prepare your body for that kind of work. It's crazy. Throwing bales up on a flatbed and doing that for a week straight is usually what we would do, and then unloading it back at the barn. And for some reason, that was absolute paradise to me. The mountains and the fresh air and the farm, and getting to hang out in the barn baling hay.
Well, there you go. I'm going to give you another, something that connects us. So I used to work at a feed store when I was young, and so I know hay.
Yeah.
I mean, I would stack it, 20 feet high and throw it around, load trucks, and we would deliver it to all these ranches out by Justin and stuff.
That's right, boy.
And and I remember starting and throwing it and kicking it with my knee and going up super high. I remember how hard it was in the beginning, and then towards the end, I was like, "This is nothing, man." And I got pretty strong. You know what I mean? Like from throwing hay around, and then from what was it? It was like the cheap kind, and there was like alfalfa or something, the greener with more moisture. Yeah. Those things. Now that was some heavy hay.
Oh, I bet.
But that's a rabbit trail. Anyways, but there you go. That's a connection that kind of can solidify our friendship. We know hay. We know how to throw some hay around. And so, okay, here's a good one. Okay, I'm looking for some lessons or some challenges that you went through, and usually a lot of us get them from our first jobs. Where did you work at, or some of your first jobs, and maybe you had a challenge or a failure in those times?
Boy, we were broke. We were so broke when I was a kid, going into high school.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't wait until I think 15 was the age that most places would hire at.
Yeah, and so you were ready at 15.
Oh, at 14 years, 11 months, and 3 weeks. I had applications filled out. I was applying everywhere I could. And I finally picked up a job as a grocery bagger at a Tom Thumb in Arlington, Texas. Man, that was, it's a culture shock.
Yeah.
Trying to do something like that on your feet all day, trying not to screw up, trying to keep your job, and the stress that goes along with it. That's the first time having a job and am I doing it right? I don't know. But I bet you if I was to go and grade young Andrew as a grocery bagger, I bet he was pretty badass. But at the time, he didn't know he was doing anything right.
Yeah.
He thought he was a second away from getting fired every day.
Your demeanor for me is very positive, and you're always smiling. You receive me well. You kind of lift my spirit every time I see you. We always have good conversations. And then you mentioned growing up super poor. We grew up super poor as well, but a lot of people, they hold down a grudge, or they're angry, whether it be at their parents or society, And then in their later years, you can still feel it. So I don't feel it from you, man. Like, you got positive vibes. And sometimes it's not intentional, but what did you do, or what happened in your life where you've chosen not to let the way you grew up affect the way that you are now?
I think that people that walk around with a grudge like that probably don't have the ability for introspective thought, to evaluate your situation and see your own shortcomings in ways that you could have improved your own life but chose a different route. And I've done that constantly my entire life, trying to chase a different goal or a different dream, and money being the last thing in my mind, really. Anyway, but I think that really what drives that idea home is that I've seen how bad it can get in some places. And whenever I was very young, 19, 20 years old, I was in a third world country. I think Iraq was a third world country. It certainly seemed like a third world country when I was there. And to see how people were living, to see the inconveniences that they were faced with on a daily basis, and to see what real poverty was. When you come back from something like that, when you experience you see other people's absolute zero, like what broke looks like to them.
Yeah.
If you got a job, if you got a roof over your head, if you got clothes that, aren't 2 weeks dirty, and you ate within the last 24 hours, you're doing pretty good, man. So, so poverty to me, I don't think looks a lot like it does for other people.
Andrew's gonna be so mad at me. Look, watch my thumb. My thumb.
Have you not been recording?
But it picked it up on there, right?
Welcome to the Failed Podcast. No. Yeah, I got it on there. I have the audio on there. See,
that's okay.
You need to see this.
You got
because
the backup.
It happens.
You got the backup.
So the secondary audio, is so important, and I have that in place, so I'm not too worried. But I glanced over here, and I saw the red buttons. It was green.
I saw it when you saw it,
and I was like, "Oh my God!"
I saw you see it.
But it's all good. It's all on there. Okay, so we shall continue.
Are you going to be able to use that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no. So I'm just going to go from where we're at, and I'll just take it up to there, and then take this one, and just whatever, paste it together.
Right.
Because this one has more like for people that want a podcast. This one has more depth in the sound. That one has more mids in it, and this one has more lows. So you'll be able to tell a difference. But as far as listening to the content, you won't miss.
So we don't have to start over.
No, we don't have to. Because
that was some good content.
Andrew, you have to cry again, bro, on cue.
Damn it!
At the same time,
I'm all out of juice.
Oh man. Anyways, no big deal when challenges happen. That's the whole point of the failed podcast. That was a total fail. But what I've learned is just, Sam, you have a choice. You either quit, beat yourself up, or you keep going. You learn from it. And so
this wasn't scripted?
No. I was like, you saw me look over?
I did. I saw your eyes look at that button, and I went, uh-oh. Because I knew what you were.
Is that recording, babe? Jeez. If that wasn't.
Man, I hope you keep all of this.
I will. This is. Okay. Refocus.
It's okay, Sam. You got this, bro. You got this.
No, and so growing up, you like you said, you were poor, but I see that it doesn't affect you now, and that's a hard thing. Like there's some challenges that we go through, whether we choose them or not, but we do choose if we're gonna live with them every day. And from my perspective, you've chosen not to let that bother you every day. I see you're happy, you're motivated, even what you learned from those times when off camera, we were talking about your podcast and how long you went. And that there's no money, there might not be support. In essence, you were poor when you were podcasting, but you kept going.
Yeah. And
slowly you're growing. Now you're getting more rich, you're getting more supporters, more listeners, and so on. But I can't tell the difference when I listen to old stuff to new stuff. Like, you were just showing up, and you were the same Andrew, but constantly improving. And so I think that's a quality that a lot of us can learn from, is don't let your past just stick with you, man. Learn from it and grow, It
means a lot.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in your life? That's a deep question, I know.
Yeah, it is. I think just direction, man.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways that you can live this life. Yeah. And I've tried a bunch of them. And I'm still kind of trying to figure out exactly what direction I want to go.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the biggest struggle for me is just going, well, damn, did I take a left back there when I should have taken a right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Should I have stuck with that? Something that I think about a lot is getting out of the military. I did it for 12 years.
Oh, man.
And
What branch did you serve under?
Army.
The Army, okay.
And at some point, I just looked around and went, this is not for me anymore, man.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same. I went in 2005. 2005 artillery. And by the time I got out, I was in the reserves and I was in aviation. So these are totally different worlds. And at some point, I just decided that I needed to get out of it. But there's not, hardly a week that goes by that I don't go, man, I miss my buddies. I miss wearing that uniform.
Yeah.
I miss the rank too. I'd earned myself just a touch of rank.
Yeah.
And
Things change.
when I walked into the hangar, dude, everybody underneath me, all the guys with less rank than me, and some of the guys with more rank than me would kind of part like Moses in the Red Sea, because they knew if I was on the floor, orders were about to start getting barked out. Yeah. And that was
you see, that's easy to like.
Yeah, that's something that you don't get in civilian world.
Being the man, you know. Being 12 years, that's a long time. What are some of the challenges, or maybe, I don't know, a failure that's funny or serious, whatever, that you experienced during those 12 years that you've overcome, learned from, and make you a better person today?
Well, I'm having trouble pinpointing any kind of military situation like that, but I will tell you the story of Austin. How about that?
Let's go.
I made a trip down to Austin not too long ago. I've been back in Fort Worth for about 2 years now, but I ran down to Austin to chase a job opportunity, and they literally called me up out of the blue. Somebody I'd worked for years and years ago, and he said, "Hey, I started this company. I'm looking for good people to help me run it. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Well, what you would have to pay me and what you would have to agree to get me to move away from Fort Worth would be completely unreasonable." And he said, "I tell you what, write it down, send it to me, and let's see if we can make it work." Yeah. So I wrote out an impossible job description. I wanted to be the operations manager, and I had all these demands. And I had a price point in mind, too, for my annual salary. Oh, yeah. And I sent it to him, and he said yes.
That happens sometimes.
So, I'm very excited about this. I'm thinking, man, everything that I've done in life has finally paid off. Yeah. And I'm going to go down there. I'm going to start this brand new life. It's going to be great. And I get down there, and after 6 weeks, I realize I messed up. And, I had to kind of limp myself back to Fort Worth, beat up and feeling stupid,
That's tough.
Because all my friends, all my family, whenever I moved down to Austin, they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, you don't understand. This is great. This is going to be such a good thing for me. And to have to,
what do you think it was? Were you naive? Were you too excited? What was it that you had to face? Because 6 weeks is not a lot of time. And then,
now I kept it up for 10 months.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, after about 6 weeks, I knew I'd screwed up.
Got it, man. That's a rough time then for the rest of those 9 years. Well, or 9 months.
Yeah, it was a rough ride. It really was. But no, I overestimated the situation. Yeah. And I overestimated the people that I was going to work for. Got it. And once I realized what I'd gotten myself into, I knew I was going to have to pivot.
What are some valuable lessons that you learned from that situation? I'm asking because of this. There's someone watching, an opportunity comes, and you're like, yeah, burn this bridge, burn that, buy peace, boom, boom, and then you leave it, and you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta cross back over. Yeah. What did you learn from that? Well,
and there's probably 3 dozen different situations that this would apply to, but just you have to be flexible. And that's just life, and that's with everything you're going to run into, because one thing you can count on is life is completely unpredictable. And as prepared as you think you are, as careful as you were writing out your own job description and crossing all the T's and dotting the I's, sometimes it doesn't matter, because you truly have no control whenever it comes down to it. You don't know what's going to happen with your health.
Yeah.
You don't know the decisions other people are going to make. You don't know what's going to happen with the economy tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's so many factors that you do not have any control over. So the number one thing, and the thing that I had before I went down there, and the thing that got me safely back to Fort Worth, is that I'm a pretty flexible guy. I can hang with the best of them in that category for sure.
We've all failed. I've had a lot of failures in life, and that's what the whole point of the Failed podcast is I try to be open about it, not like so people can like look at me and say, "Oh, poor Sam," but so that they can say, "You know what? Sam learned from it, and he's still going." That's the message that I want to put out there. What's the best lesson that failure has taught you? Whatever type of failure you've been through, what do you think some of the lessons are?
Keep some extra food.
You got to explain what do you keep some extra food?
Man, so the thing that keeps me kind of sane and keeps me from worrying too much is doing little things like, tucking a little bit of money back. I have several accounts with just a little bit of money in it. If things get real bad, I can dip into, but I do that intentionally, just in case. You never know. Yeah. When I'm at the grocery store and I'm picking up my fresh vegetables and my meat for the week and, all those perishable goods, I'm also known for going down the peanut butter aisle, getting some peanut butter, getting some canned food, things that won't go bad. But there's just these little bitty things that I do that keep me calm. I know I'm not going to go hungry because I got, $100 worth of peanut butter and canned food in the pantry and things like that. I've got a little bit of money set back in little accounts. Yeah. So, there's little things I do to prepare myself for upcoming failures because they are coming, right?
Man. But are you scared to fail?
I don't think so.
Not no more?
No.
You've learned.
It's just a day of the week, buddy.
Yeah. I love it, man. That's good.
It's true.
What are you most proud of in life so far?
I think at different times in my life, I've been really proud of certain things. For a very long time, my military status and the kids that were underneath me that I was getting to instruct, teach, and make sure that they were being taken care of, that's something I was really proud of because I knew that I was, in my mind, doing everything that somebody in my position should do to take care of the people underneath them. Yeah. So that's something I was really proud of. Lately, the podcast, Fort Worth Roots podcast, that's something I'm extremely proud of because it's finally starting to get just the smallest amount of recognition, and that feels really good because it's something that I've worked on for years now. That's probably, right now, that's my proud moment.
What do you hope to achieve in the future? What's one of your big goals, personal or podcast, whatever?
This is going to sound insane, and that's because it is. I really want to have my own spaceship one day.
Spaceship?
Yeah.
You're in the right time for that.
I know.
It was weird before Elon and Bezos was around, but now I just heard that Tom Cruise is going to have a scene in a movie where he's actually in space. Perfect. Any other time, that would have been like, whatever, man. Like, it's so different. Not no more. Guess what? He's going to have a part in space in a movie.
Well, there was this lull, we had all the Apollo missions, and then we kind of pulled back. Enterprise or those types of shuttles, we were running those back and forth to the ISS for a while, and then those became obsolete and out of date, and NASA decided to pull the entire shuttle program. Yeah. Or more specifically, I think this is accurate, President Obama was in office whenever they scrubbed that thing. And I got nothing bad to say about that, man, except for the shuttle mission getting scrubbed under his watch.
Space. I love space. Necessary.
I found out later that the reason they did that was so that NASA could take the allotted money that they get every year and start kind of squirreling it away for their new shuttle program, which I think we're going to see roll out in either 24 or 25.
Really? Well, okay, so I was at Omaha Surplus today, and there was a hat, and it said, I think it was United States Space Force. Mm-hmm. It's the first time I've seen it.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. I mean, I saw the show with Steve Carell, but But I was like, yeah, it's a branch.
It's a real thing.
Branch now.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of, I was like, I picked up the hat for a second and I showed my daughter and I go, let me put it back. Because I thought it was cool. So much, we've gained so much for every space travel that we have done. We've gained so much. We don't even know it, because of all the research and stuff that goes.
There's a website and you can just kind of follow along with NASA to see what they're doing. But I mean, there is something going on every week.
Yeah.
And you don't hear about anything but the really big stuff or the bad stuff. But there are discoveries and there are missions going on all the time.
You know what I saw and I'm really enjoying is they recently started taking photos with this new and advanced camera that we're getting the most clear photos of planets like never before. And so I look at them and I'm like, dude,
it's amazing.
It's like you did it with an iPhone. It's right down across the street.
Yeah.
It looks so good.
That's called the James Webb Space Telescope.
There you go.
And it's opening up the universe for us.
Yeah, I love how clear everything looks.
It's unbelievable.
Clarity. Clarity does something. What is the most important lesson that you've learned in life so far?
Don't count on anybody else. And that might sound kind of cynical, but you really have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You need to be able to solve problems on your own. You need to be your own hero. You need to be your own savior, or however you want to put it. You've got to be able to take care of yourself. Yeah. And if your goal is to help other people, you have to be able to operate from a strong base before you can take care of other people. So that's my guiding light right there. Yeah. Make sure that I'm good, make sure my feet are flat on the ground before I start trying to spread the helping hand too far.
We all like to smile. We all like to be happy, and we search it in so many different ways. What do you think the key is to happiness?
It's internal. You've got to generate it yourself. Yeah. And that's something.
It's not buying new shoes.
No, it might be. I don't know if that's what does it for you. No, go get them. But I think that what people run into a lot that drives them into spiraling depression is counting on happiness to come from an external source. Like your wife or your husband or your friends or whatever. Name a thing or a person. If you're trying to get your happiness from that thing, if you're trying to derive your happiness from an external source, you're going to come up short every single time. Yeah. And I want to say it was Jim Carrey just recently, I say recently, within the last couple of years, said something to the effect of, I hope everybody at some point gets to be filthy rich, millionaire, just so they can see that's not where happiness comes from. And that's really important for people. Great. And I wish he'd have said it a little different because, that focuses people on, wealth doesn't bring happiness, but it's more than that. It's internal. And as corny as this sounds, you really have to find a way to just choose to be happy. Yeah. And I'm not happy all the time. I'm pissed off and miserable at least 2 or 3 days out of the week, but I try to get that happiness internally and not expect other people or things to provide that to me.
I look at all these like billionaires that are out there, and everyone thinks money is going to answer everything, and then they buy a perfectly good boat, right? It's their first boat, and you're like, that would be the end for me. and then,
right there, done.
Yeah, we're good, and it's huge, $200-300 million.
Yeah,
but they buy another one.
Yeah,
and then they remodel it. And then they buy another, and you just can't. And it just proves that what Jim Carrey said. Like I wish everyone could experience it so you can know that it might be fun, but you're never going to be satisfied. Happiness isn't going to truly come from stuff because it doesn't even work for the people that have everything. No. They're still chasing
some of the most miserable, messed up people on the planet.
What do you enjoy doing on your free time?
So.
I picture you just podcasting the whole time. This is
seriously, man.
In the mirror practicing.
Somebody asked me that recently, and I was like, "Damn, I don't really have hobbies anymore. I spend so much time on the podcast that I really have sacrificed all my hobbies, and I want to get back into those. But going to the gun range, once a month, and just practicing a skill that I don't want to lose. Kayaking has always been something that I've really enjoyed. You just get out there and you go It doesn't cost anything.
Is it safe to kayak the Trinity?
Yeah, I wouldn't drink the water or even get it on your skin.
Have you
but
kayaked it?
Yeah.
It's fine? Okay.
Well,
Because I've done it. I just want to make sure.
And there's different, I mean, the Trinity runs like deep into the country and all the way down to the coast, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
so
it goes, from top to bottom.
There are different little pockets of the Trinity, and some of it you don't want to get in.
Yeah.
I was going down the Trinity. This was somewhere in Arlington, and I'm paddling. I'm just going down the river, and this guy, like not dressed for kayaking, was coming against the current. He's paddling his ass off, and the guy does not look like in shape. Like he's not the kind of guy that gets out there and kayaks for fun. And he's coming up the river, and I go, "Hey, good morning," and he like almost fell off of his kayak. I come to find out later that drug runners had been using the Trinity to get drugs through town without getting, pulled over or detected. And whenever I thought back about that situation, I was like, his boat was loaded down with bags.
Yeah.
He did have a giant oversized backpack. He was not a kayaker. He wasn't dressed for kayaking. Like this is all. So I wonder if maybe I ran into some.
I was wondering why his kayak was gold and it had a radio and it was. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so when I got in, I had got a kayak, and I'm pretty. I mean, I'll do things. I'm pretty athletic. I'm losing it, but I'm good. And so I got on the Trinity from downtown. It was like I never done it.
Uh-huh.
I jumped into it. I didn't fall in the water. I'm glad I didn't, but I jumped in from a rock.
Okay.
I wasn't able to stabilize myself with a paddle. And then I had someone drop me off, and I put my truck way over there by White Settlement Road. And I said, I'm just going to ride all the way there. It was my first time jumping in there. No one knew I was there.
Oh no.
And I did it. I mean, it took a while, but I did it. But I realized that.
So you're going with the current the whole time?
Yeah.
And the water level was good, so you weren't getting stuck or having to walk?
No, it was good. But, I mean, I could have got hurt or seriously injured or something because I just didn't know.
I do stuff like that, too.
But anyway, it was funny. But that's cool to know that you do that. Maybe one day we'll go kayaking or something.
100%.
I know they rent them out by downtown sometimes.
And I bought that big box truck that's supposed to be a mobile podcast studio.
You're going to turn into a kayak?
Well,
I'm joking.
No, I want to either put a rack on top or have enough room inside of it so that we can take kayaks with us. We could just do like a podcast kayaking thing once a month or something, load up the mobile podcast studio with kayaks and get it.
That sounds like fun. This is a great question. I'm curious what you're going to say. What do you think makes a good friend?
Acceptance. My closest friends just kind of accept me for the crazy, nerdy weirdo that I am. And we get along great.
Yeah.
So probably acceptance, I think.
What inspires you to create?
Well, I release my episodes on Mondays, right?
Yeah.
And all the other great podcasts in Fort Worth release them at different times during the week. So I just listen to their podcast. I steal all their content, and then I put it on my show. I'm kidding. I don't know. My type of creation is finding people with great stories and making that available to the public.
Yeah.
I knew whenever I started my show that I'm not the interesting guy. So let me go find interesting people and disseminate that information to the public.
What's something that you've learned about people and interviewing people from being a podcaster, being a creative? What's something that you didn't know in the beginning and then now after so many people? I know, what's the guy, Raphael, the Ninja Turtle, all the way to the ex-mayor of Fort Worth, to Tim Love. Name a few people. I mean, it's like, get out of here, dude. You've had a lot of people. And it just keeps getting better and better. How do you keep improving to get better and better so that you can bring out the best in your guest? Now we're going to jump into Let's Talk Podcast.
Okay, I can do that all day. Well, one thing I've realized is that for me anyway, there's not a good format that I can put together that's going to work on every single guest. So I keep an open format. I just kind of go with the flow. And what I have found is that every single person that I sit down with is completely different than anybody else that I've ever podcasted with.
Yeah.
Now, whenever I have repeat guests on, excuse me, when I have repeat guests on, that's when we get to, loosen up, more comfortable. Like, this is nothing. I know exactly how this is going to go because we've done this before.
Yeah.
I know what kind of person you are, so it's easy that way. But yeah, everybody's different.
Yeah, because when you interview someone one time, you can go all in. Then if you interview them a second time, you have a whole lot that you can't use, and now you have to you have to come at them with another approach. What's someone that you've interviewed twice that has made you think, what approach am I going to take now? Because interviewing first is different from twice.
Oh wow.
Have you done anyone?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. We've had like I had Joe Savage, a local musician, on 4 times. He's been on the show.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's a great example actually right there, because when I first met him, we were there to talk about music, and then the next episode he was getting ready to leave for the El Camino de Santiago, which is a 500-mile walk across Spain. So the second interview, we weren't talking as much about music. We were talking about music plus, yo, dude, what kind of shoes you going to get,
Yeah.
And then the third one, I think he had just gotten back from his trip, so we were talking about that and a little bit about how he's gearing up to get back into the music groove here in Fort Worth. And so, yeah, you take a little bit of, you're building a friendship with people at that point, and there's so many guests that I've had on that I really want to have back on the show, just to see what their progression. And you mentioned one of them, Betsy Price, our former mayor. She was a mayor for, I believe, 11 years. Of Fort Worth.
Mayor.
Yes.
I use X. Maybe that sounds a little, former mayor. I should use that better. That term's better.
Potato. No big deal. But that's somebody that I'd love to have back on the show, because she's absolutely a public speaker. Mm-hmm. So she's a
pro.
She's a Jedi at managing the mic and handling the conversation, and it's just really easy to sit down with somebody like that. But
I had Lance on from It's Probably You from the podcast. So I had that feeling. I'm like, he's a pro. I could just be like, hey, how you feeling? And I could have made some coffee and the podcast would have been fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where was I? Okay, podcasting. Here's my question. There's a lot of people right now. There's this thing start a podcast. Oh, you need marketing? Start a podcast. You want to start a podcast? And I don't know. When I hear that, I don't think people understand. They're looking at it as a very established thing, as opposed to the building up thing. They never talk about the building up. They're assuming it's just everyone's going to make it. So what's some of the real part of podcasting that people don't realize whenever they're just throwing it out there as if it's an easy thing?
Yeah. Well, like anything else in life, if it's new to you, do your research. Look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Go, watch some videos on a true podcast professional talk about the ups and downs, ins and outs, and all the difficulties that you'll run into. To be honest with you, podcasting is not that difficult. You can take your smartphone and you can talk into it, and then you can take a free app on your phone and you can publish that thing and just send it out. There you go. You are now a podcaster. But to do it right, to do it like Sam does it on the Failed Podcast, with this high-speed equipment, these excellent microphones. He's got a format. He's been doing this for a long, long time. He knows what he's doing. To get to that point, you're going to need to do your homework.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between doing and then having the talent. To do it is easy. Email this, that program, your phone. There, now you're doing it. But to create episodes, to create content, how have you become better at that? What would you tell someone about creating the content? Not necessarily just creating a podcast. I think those are two different things. 50 episodes in. Yeah. Not the first and second, maybe the 50th. Yeah. What separates the 50th from the few in the beginning?
Just consistency. If you're going to roll into it and decide that you're going to do the thing, you need to decide right off the bat, am I going to do this weekly, monthly? Am I going to do this twice a week? Yeah. If you do it more than weekly, my hat is off to you. That's a hell of a challenge. It is. Especially if you have a job, which I do. But just consistency is probably the most important part of it, I would think.
Well, and what did you teach yourself about podcasting that you wish you would have known sooner?
Probably that you're going to have some people that maybe you wish you hadn't have had on the show, or maybe you wish you hadn't have interacted with because you thought you were going to get this great interview out of it, and they ended up not showing up or canceling on you or something like that. Or maybe you did the entire recording, and then a day later they called you and they said, "Hey, I don't want you to release that." You're like, "What?"
Yeah,
It happens.
it does.
So with my podcast now, and this just started recently, I added a prompt on one of those buttons, and it says, "Hey, thanks for joining the Fort Worth Roots podcast. We're going to start recording here in a minute. Just a couple of admin notes. Please make sure that the headphones are on securely and comfortably. Make sure that microphone's right next to your mouth. And just so you know, this is your last chance to run out of here screaming, because once we start recording, it is public information. I won't reduce this for you. I will not remove it for you.
Yeah.
You are giving me permission to use every bit of our recording."
That's smart.
There's things like that you're going to run into, and I think if you're recording anybody on video, audio, or any photographs, you need a release.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure that the people that you're involving in your art, in your craft, understand that you are going to use that content. So
That's true.
Make sure you get that out of the way up front.
All the legal stuff, you don't want no drama after.
Well, and just setting the expectation
Yeah.
too, because it doesn't necessarily need to be about legality.
Yeah.
You just need to set the expectation that, hey, I'm not going to waste your time. You're not going to waste
don't
my
waste
time.
mine.
So
Yeah. So, what else can you tell me about podcasting that a fellow podcaster, someone who's going to launch, that's just good advice? What else could you share with us? How many episodes have you done so those people listening can know where that kind of your advice is coming from?
this Monday is going to be episode 121. I have done. Is it? Am I coming up on 3 years?
I think so. Yeah, it's gonna be 3 years.
Yeah. So I'm coming up on 3 years, 121 episodes. Monday's episode is with the CEO and president of the United Way.
Nice.
And so, my advice to you is, why are you doing this? Are you doing it because you think you're going to get famous? I was just telling your wife before we got started, talking about starting a podcast.
Yeah.
I hope I can say that.
Absolutely.
But
stay tuned. He's trying to just spill the beans, but I'm going to put this on. It's
and
all
you
good.
can, and you can
Stay
edit
tuned.
it. You can edit it if you need to.
Nah, I think I'll leave it on.
But what I was telling her is, a year into this, I was getting 10 downloads per episode.
Yeah.
After a year of
What do you mean? It
grinding
wasn't
it out.
1,000 from the get-go?
That's not how it works. So now, if you've got a great following already through your social media, if you're already established in your field or something like that, if you can fall into a niche, you could probably get some really impressive numbers up really quick. But if you're just a nobody like me and you're starting out from ground zero, boy, that's a hard grind. So if my question to anybody that's starting a podcast is why? Because if you're doing it for any other reason, just the enjoyment, other than just the enjoyment, you need a different hobby. For sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, Andrew, I want to thank you, man, for coming on.
Absolutely, man. Honor is always mine.
It was great, man. I enjoyed this time together, and I hope that y'all enjoyed it. We just bring people on here, and my goal is just to share their stories and see what they've been through, see what they've learned, and who they've become from those lessons. And so, thank you so much. Andrew is Andrew Turner from the Fort Worth Roots podcast. Is there anything you want to plug or say? Either way, I'm going to put everything in the description below so people can find you and listen to your stuff. And every Monday he's posting, so you can put that in your calendar and you have something to listen to on Mondays for sure.
I got one shout out, if that's okay.
Do it.
We have an incredible scene here in Fort Worth. We have a great group of musicians here in the Fort Worth area, Tarrant County as a whole. We have a great, really tight-knit group of podcasters. Fort Worth has something special. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you need to seek it out, because it's here for you, and we want you to enjoy it. That's why we create this stuff. So check out your local podcasters. Check out your local musicians. Get out of the house and go see a show. For $10, you can go see an incredible live show at venues all over Fort Worth.
So thank you, Andrew, for coming on the Failed Podcast, and thank you, the listeners, for your support. Give us a follow. Give us hit the like button and help us grow our reach by sharing. And you know what I always say? We'll see you on the next one. Andrew, thank you again, my man.